In this week's It's the Law, we're asking attorney Jay Davis about some of today's big stories. From the latest in the Stephen McDaniel case to the breaking news about George Zimmerman's arrest. Good evening. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks,
We've got a lot to ask you.
A lot going on today.
Let's talk about the breaking news we just mentioned. George Zimmerman has been charged with second-degree murder. So why do you think he was charged with second degree instead of first, and what actually does this mean?
Well, second-degree murder basically is saying that he didn't necessarily have the intent to do it when he started. He may have called 911, made the phone call innocently enough, and as he went up, he may have taken some action that was beyond reasonable in a depraved, what they consider a depraved mind in Florida, which leads to some sort of action that jeopardizes human life without a reasonable risk. If he pulled his gun on him in a way that made Trayvon take some defensive action and that created it, perhaps he started something that he couldn't quite finish and it led to his death. Okay,
let's switch over to our local story about Stephen McDaniel. Today, $850,000 bond was set for the murder charge of McDaniel. Now, bail was set because the DA's office didn't present an indictment within 90 days of his arrest. What could have caused that delay?
Well, there's a lot of things that can cause a delay, and the death penalty actually gives the prosecutor, the DA's office, an option to extend for another 90 days if they needed to. They did have that option, and they failed to utilize that option. So there was actually 180 days they could have been, but because it took 105 days, and they had not requested that within 90 days, the judge had to issue bail according to Georgia law.
Okay, now even though bail was set today, we spoke to McDaniel's attorney just a little bit ago, and he said he's probably not going to be able to afford bail. But I'm curious, how likely would it have been for McDaniel to be released on bond, even though he still had additional charges, 30 counts of sexual exploitation of children and also burglary charges?
Well, he's not going to get released on any kind of bond until all of those have bonds been set. So the other charges were probably not as much of a concern to the defense strategy because they needed to get the murder one out of the way first. So now it is out of the way, there is a bond set. Whether or not he's able to get it may be a different story, may lead to other motions. But the other charges will be bondable and he will get those, and he will be at least eligible to have some amount of bond.
All right, and as this case moves forward, I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions for you about that. I want to get to a viewer question. This one is from Stephen in Warner Robins. It's a good one since tax day is almost here. He says, I haven't received a federal tax return in several years because of a student loan. Who do I have to contact and what do I have to do to start getting my federal tax return back?
Well, student loan is generally federally insured and the government gets their money. They don't lose their money, whether it's IRS or student loan or whatever. And that's one thing that's not dischargeable in a bankruptcy. So you're going to pay that student loan no matter what goes on. So the options are you pay off the student loan, you get your tax refund back. Or you go and you make an arrangement with the administrator of that student loan to pay some amount monthly, go back on a monthly program, go on something where they're no longer just with that judgment against you or that holding that loan against you with no payments whatsoever. Or you file a bankruptcy. And in a bankruptcy, that may be an option depending on what your other debts are. It may be, even though it's not dischargeable, it would allow you to pay it over time rather than everything being taken with your tax refund.
All right, a lot of great information today. Yeah. Thanks for clearing that up for us.
Thank
and
you.
To submit your legal questions, you can send us an email to itsthelaw@41nbc.com.